I believe this over-the-counter pain reliever has done more damage to parenting over the last several decades than anything else. In fact, I would say the vast majority of advice out there started right here. And I realized this when I woke up the other morning with a headache, and I knew the headache was because I didn't have enough caffeine. I've been trying to wean off caffeine again. And I knew that if I took some kind of caffeine, it was probably going to take about an hour until I got some relief from that headache. But if I took a couple of these, I would have relief sooner. Now, the problem wasn't solved, but the pain was gone, so I didn't really think about it as much, and eventually I just got more caffeine. I took away the symptom. The symptom was gone. It wasn't bothering me anymore, but I didn't fix the root cause. If I didn't grab some coffee, that headache would still be there 6 hours later because I wasn't fixing the actual problem. I was just putting a Band-Aid over it, making it less of a problem, less of an inconvenience, but still something that I was just kind of rattling around. At the same time, one of my kids decided that he was going to have a hard day. He woke up on the wrong side of the planet. Not even the wrong side of his bed, not the wrong side of the house, not the wrong side of our city, the planet. Being on the wrong side of a sphere is impressive. Bothering his brothers, not communicating, not wanting to discuss anything, shutting down completely anytime I asked him a question, while at the same time screaming at brothers. And for the next hour, I spent time after time after time correcting his behaviors. But his brothers were not the issue. The fact that he was hungry was not the issue. Whenever my kids get into this habitual cycle, I put them on what I call a retrain, which is ultimately they become my buddy. Until their behavior is corrected, they become my buddy. And everything that I do, they do right alongside me. If I'm working, they're on the floor coloring, or they're doing something around me. I am their primary caretaker until they're willing to drop their walls, open up, and we can fix the actual problem. See, his problem was his proverbial need for caffeine, not his need for a proverbial painkiller. His behavior was the headache, but it wasn't the root cause, though it did somewhat become my headache too. If your oil light or your engine light comes on in your car, is the best thing to do pull over and unplug that light? Like, I'm not a mechanic, but probably not. That light didn't come on just because the light bulb wanted to be seen. That light came on because it was saying, hey, there's a problem down there. You need to go look into that. But we live in a painkiller culture. We live in an unplug the light culture. We want to throw Band-Aids over wounds all of the time because it takes a lot of work, effort, transparency, vulnerability, and just not wanting to dig down to figure out what the problems are. Not only are we doing this as humans, but we're doing it in our parenting too. We don't want our kids to make messes. Therefore, we give them a sippy cup instead of teaching them how to not make a mess from the get-go with a cup. Yes, when you put a cup in front of them and a gallon of milk, they're going to spill it. But they're going to learn that that's how you spill it, and then they're going to learn how not to spill it. The wise way to parent is to start with a mess and work your way backwards. Let them see the parameters and the mess that can be made when you're trying to pour something, so that then they can learn, hey, oh, that's too far. The first time on a bike, when you start to steer and you steer all crazy and you're going all over the place until you figure out, oh, it's just a little bit of a turn. But it's a lot easier to put a sippy cup in their hands. It's a lot easier to put training wheels on. And it's also a lot easier to leave those training wheels on and leave them with a sippy cup for longer. Now, those are your little kid examples, but you know where it's hardest? It's with big kids. Especially when they're 15, 16, 17, 18, and then they become adults and they're on their own and they're making choices that you likely wouldn't make. It's so easy to want to rush in and solve the problem. It's so easy to want to rush in and give them a painkiller so that their head stops hurting. But that's not going to fix it. Recently, one of my children was having some problems with friends, and there was some bullying, and it was not a good scene. However, when one of my children reacted back, it also wasn't a good scene. I was like, oh, that's not good character for you either. Was it deserved? I would say yes. But the better choice would be, let's just not be friends anymore, as opposed to clapping back. Though I'm pretty sure it felt good for her, it wasn't the right choice. And me, I wanted to get the symptoms to go away as quickly as possible. I didn't want to deal with the root because the root was annoying. The root was vulnerable, the root was hard, the root was digging, the root was vulnerability on her behalf too. The root just took longer to deal with. And my gut reaction of blocking, pushing away, none of that would have been the right solution. And having pushed through that with her and gave her the tools to be able to deal with that on her own so that next time it comes up, she knows the right thing to do, and she also knows she's not going to be in trouble for doing the wrong thing. Though she did need to fix what she did wrong. She needed to own that part of it, but I wasn't there to make her in trouble. I was there to help her dig out the root that, why was this your reaction? And how can we do this better next time? That's what parenting should be. It shouldn't be, go to your room, you're grounded for 3 weeks, you don't get any of this, I'm taking all that away. And just yesterday, I had to bring a child to the doctor to be able to be seen because he has kidney issues and some symptoms popped up and his doctor wanted him seen and he did not want to walk into the hospital. It took me 45 minutes to convince him, and I tried taking things away, I tried threatening, I tried rewarding, I tried everything that I could possibly think of. I was out of any options. I couldn't figure out how to get this child to walk in to be seen. At one point in time, we ended up getting back in the car and driving into a different part so that we were at least in the shade because I was like sweating outside. I was frustrated. And I knew in my head it was because he had fear. He was scared of what was going to happen inside of that place. But I didn't have time to waste. We needed to figure out what was going on. I was scared of the results of those tests, and I wanted those tests in my hand as soon as possible. So I was acting out of fear. He was acting out of fear. And neither of us were meeting each other where we were. So we took a deep breath. We talked it out. We realized he was scared. I realized I was scared. We confessed that to each other. We went into the hospital, went into the gift shop. We got 2 stuffed animals, one for him and one for me. They're both for him, but you know what I mean. I needed to meet him on that level. And then we went in and we checked in and I looked at him and I said, I'm sorry you're so scared, but I'm right here. And he said, I just get really nervous. And when I get nervous, I just don't want to do it. I freeze. And that makes sense because in that hospital, he's seen a lot of painful days. And I don't know if anybody else who's had children who have had to be on medicines consistently have gotten to the point that the only thing they control is whether or not they take medicine. And that control is something they want to hold on to. He also tends to do that with me. So we have to do a very rewards-based kind of medicine protocol, which means I'm pretty much now bankrupt just on the amount of Legos that I have to get through a 10-day antibiotic protocol. But again, it comes down to acknowledging that we are a symptom-based, unplug the light kind of culture all across the board, not just in parenting. And in order to actually solve problems, we need to do the work and dig down into the problem. Yes, in my car, it's easier to reset the oil light and never change the oil than it is to get the oil changed. But that's not the best thing for the car. That's only going to work so long until you blow your engine. So the light may go off, but it's actually not the right thing to do. So when you get flustered in situations, especially with your kids, and your reaction is just to unplug the light, start to really look if there's actually oil that needs to be changed. And it's okay every now and again to run for the over-the-counter painkiller when you have a headache. But just acknowledge the fact that when you do that, that's not fixing the root problem. That's just fixing the temporary one. And if you let those root problems grow out of control for too long, you are going to find yourself in a forest that you can't maintain. Parenting is not easy. Humaning is not easy. But we can do hard things.